Good morning, Shawnigan students, alumni, staff, parents, Shawnigan family. I just want to start by saying that with all that's going on in the world and all the voices clamoring to be heard, I really feel like it's a privilege to be able to have this time and this opportunity to speak to you, and just want to thank you for logging in this morning. I don't know how it is for you, but I've been really struck by all the talk about normalcy these days over the last 3 weeks or so. People talking about asking, when will things get back to normal? Other people saying, well, what is the normal that we want to get back to? And the first question, of course, is a practical one. When will I be able to go into Subway without having to stand in line outside on the sidewalk? When will I be able to go to the cafe and have my coffee and muffin in the cafe at a table? The other question, what kind of normal are we looking at in the future, is a more important one, more profound one. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole issue of what's normal and what's not normal, or probably more importantly, who do we consider to be normal? So society has always had this idea of the normal human being as far back as you can go. The person against who everyone else is judged as superior or inferior, worthy or unworthy to have power and money. And of course, this norm, this kind of standard person, is always identified by the color of their skin, by their gender, by their sexual orientation, by their IQ, by their physical health. And of course, you know that the standard person, the most normal human being, has always been the heterosexual white male who has an IQ between 100 and 130 and has few or no physical or mental limitations. You know this guy because he has been trying to run the world for the last several thousand years. He still is to some extent. So this is the situation that we've had, and more recently, thanks to prophetic and courageous voices, we've begun to think, well, maybe the situation ought to be changed. Maybe we ought to look at doing things differently. And the pressures that were put on society originally, at first, maybe in the 60s, they manifested themselves in the idea that maybe we should expand the idea of normality. Because, you know, as long as they think and act and speak like white men, maybe women and even people of color should be considered normal in some circumstances and given positions, important positions. Of course, at the time we called this tokenism. So a little later on, with more prophetic voices, we started to realize that, you know, maybe we need to see everybody as normal in their own way. And that worked pretty well, except we always had this kind of lingering idea of what's really normal. So now, today, I think we're starting into a process where we're starting to wonder if the whole idea of normalcy maybe is not a good one. Of having, you know, the privileged white male at the center of our social and cultural lives. And maybe it's time to move completely beyond this idea of judging people by their outward appearance or their personality or their sexuality. So that's a scary idea for a lot of people, the idea that we are going to have a world where there's no normalcy, where there's no labels, there's no way to quickly determine who should have power and who shouldn't have power. And if you don't think that's scary, just look around. Look at what's happening on the streets of the cities of all over North America. We have this ongoing conflict, which now is erupting into violence between people who see the need for change and people who are fiercely opposed to such change. And of course, this is just the newest manifestation of a struggle that's been going on covertly or overtly for decades. So it's not easy for people of privilege to give that privilege up. Often people of privilege don't even realize that they are privileged. One of the things that psychologists all say is that the thing that is universal amongst privileged people is that we think, we've convinced ourselves that we actually have earned our place in the world, which is, of course, patently not true. So change is scary, especially the kind of change that we're talking about. But I'll just say two things. One is that change is coming. Change is inevitable, and change needs to happen. It's necessary. And as difficult as it is, we all have to get used to it. We all have to find ways to move beyond judging people based on their outward appearance, based on their race or their sexual orientation. The other thing I would say is none of this means that we don't have norms, that there is no normal. We just have to shift the way we think about normal, because we do have norms and we all know what they are. We all can agree on them and we can all aspire to them. They're norms that have been talked about and promoted by spiritual sages and philosophers and others for thousands of years, and you know what they are. The norms that are important, the norms that identify us as human beings, are our courage, our compassion, our ability for self-acceptance and acceptance of others, our common kind of humanity, our fragility, as well as our resilience. So those are things that we need to start thinking of as normal human characteristics, the things that draw us together and pull us together. And our shift towards those kind of norms, that's what's going to change the world. I think of Dr. Martin Luther King when he said in his I Have a Dream speech, he said, "I look forward to the day when a person will no longer be judged according to their color of their skin, but according to the content of their character." So it is a difficult time, and it is an important time to speak out. And if some of you are going out on marches, there's lots of debate, and all of that is so important these days. The one thing that I would say that perhaps some of the wisest activists in history have said is that, this work of social change is not just political. The work of social change is ultimately a spiritual work. And to do it properly, we need to maintain minds that are calm, hearts that are without hatred, and characters that resist the easy allure of violence. So next week is Pride Week. So what a great week to think about some of these things and reflect on the kind of world that we want to see and how we can begin to live or continue to live into that world. There will be some wonderful things online for you to watch, some inspirational words. But also I would really encourage you to think about your life and to think about how you can make a contribution, how you can be part of the solution of starting to shift our idea of what's normative from what are really meaningless appearance, accidental kind of characteristics, to something much more important, which is our common humanity, our connection with one another. Have a great week and go with God's blessing.
Hi, Sean again. The last week and a bit has been difficult for a lot of us, and especially with the tragedies and the events happening in the world. But a grade 11 student in Renfrew, Timi, has decided to sing for us, and it's a very inspirational song. She will be singing Rise Up by Adra. Hope you enjoy.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fire, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move mountains, gonna walk it out and move mountains, and I'll rise like the day, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the hate, we'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, for that we have each other, for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise up. We will rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of thee. I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, rise like the waves. We'll rise up in spite